So there's a little bit of a Operation Rainfall slash Xenoblade Chronicles controversy that's going on, whereas most people feel that Operation Rainfall, the fan-driven movement to help Nintendo understand that we, the fans, especially here in the US and in English-speaking countries or just outside of Japan, wants Xenoblade Chronicles. We want the last story. We want Pandora's Tower. This movement was started back around 2010, 2011 or so, and really reached its peak before we got the official announcement in 2011 that Xenoblade Chronicles would be localized in Europe. People everywhere were commenting, posting, tweeting, wasn't really a thing back then, but commenting all over the place, writing Nintendo, whatever the case, to get these games localized, because this was a game that looked awesome when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles, which we're going to focus on that game. But that game looked so good, and it was pretty much the only game on the Wii that was as big and as luscious and vibrant as a big open RPG. So people really wanted it. But we're going to talk about the new controversy that started up here and a bit more. But before we do, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell to get my videos first. Let's go ahead and jump into where this first controversy started, and really it goes back because this is something in terms of the controversy that was said decade plus ago when it comes to what Nintendo had to say. But let's start off with where it just originally started. Nintendo over on Twitter at Nintendo put up a really cool, I would say, like GIF, the how it started, or more like meme post, or whatever you want to call it, how it started and how it's going. That was popular a bit ago, and he shows this right here, how it started. Nintendo of America has an official tweet. This is dated on June 29, 2011 at 5:33 p.m. And it says, at Operation Rainfall, thanks for being such incredible fans. Unfortunately, there continues to be no plans for NOA to release these 3 games right now. Now remember, take a look at that date, June 29th, 2011. It was already confirmed / out that Xenoblade Chronicles was going to be localized or was going to be coming to Europe in terms of the plan. So just keep that in mind overall when we talk about some of the other things. And then it goes to, how's it going? And you see here, Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Xenoblade Chronicles Future Connected, Future Redeemed, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, 2, Torna, the controller, Definitive Edition, Special Edition, Shulk Amiibo, Noah Emil Amiibo, Pyramithra Amiibo, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Special Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles Future Redeemed. Heck, and I think it's even missing like a thing or two when it comes to like 3DS. I think like the Special Edition Nintendo 3DS when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles. So yeah, there's a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles stuff. Obviously, it went from being completely irrelevant to Nintendo to being a core staple franchise that they've had now for a decade plus on Nintendo platforms over the course of 3 platforms plus, and I'm pretty sure we'll see more of Xenoblade in the future. But the interesting thing that was said here, at least if you scroll down a little bit, there was a Twitter account, and that Twitter account pulled up a quote from Mr. Reggie Fils-Aimé himself, the former Nintendo of America president. And essentially, this tweet says, before anyone starts, Operation Rainfall had nothing to do with it. So very interesting on that. So I decided to kind of take a little bit more of a look into this. And I remember just vaguely back then, I was covering content back when this quote was put out there, or at least this interview. It's an interview from Siliconera, and it was done on December 4th, 2013. And I remember vaguely them talking about this, but by this point, people have moved on to the Wii U. We were excited to see something else. I mean, we were just looking forward to hopefully getting more Wii U games, getting more Wii U content, because the Wii U was in a very dire situation. Even though it just launched the year prior, it was already in a very critical situation where there were some games coming. Super Mario 3D World was out, and there was some other stuff, Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and Pikmin, in addition to the Wonderful 101, Sonic Lost World, Lego City Undercover. There were some games. It wasn't until 2014 that's when things really picked up for the Wii U. But ultimately, we know how that ended up. Obviously, the Wii U was a failure. But if you go back and look at the quote that Mr. Reggie Fils-Aimé says, he talks about Operation Rainfall, and that's where this guy on Twitter gets the quote. And Siliconera had an interview talking to Reggie Fils-Aimé. The question was, going off of that, How much do what fans want or say influence your decisions? Operation Moonfall, Operation Rainfall are cited as examples here. So here's what Reggie has to say. Quote, I have to tell you, it doesn't affect what we do. We certainly look at it and we're certainly aware of it, but it doesn't necessarily affect what we do. I'll give you an example. I mentioned earlier that our head of product development had a bet on X versus Y. We also had a bet around localizing Xenoblade. I wanted to bring Xenoblade here. The deal was, how much of a localization effort is it? How many units are we going to sell? Are we going to make money? We are literally having this debate while Operation Rainfall was happening, and we were aware that there was interest for the game, but we had to make sure that it was a strong financial proposition. I'm paid to make sure that we're driving the business forward, so we're aware of what's happening. But in the end, we've got to do what's best for the company. The thing we know about petitions is that 100,000 signatures doesn't mean 100,000 sales. Now, this is a coded slash, I think, somewhat hiding the deficiencies and failures of the time period when it comes to Nintendo being arrogant about what they felt they could sell and what they felt doesn't need to even take time because we can just do something else. We can just make this casual game, or we can just do the Mario and the Zelda and the stuff that we know 100% is going to do awesome because the systems are selling so well with the DS and the Wii. We don't have to work a bit extra harder for the core fans out there or to have a variety or a balance. This was very apparent here. Now, Nintendo's interesting because they would sit there and say something like this, right? 100,000 signatures doesn't mean 100,000 sales. And I completely get that. But at the same time, you want to provide a well-balanced variety of games on your platform, which could lead to more system sales, which could lead to more sales overall for all your games. Having a massive RPG like Xenoblade, The Last Story, Pandora's Tower, these type of games balance out some of the casual things and some of the big Nintendo games that you're doing to create a more balanced and better system overall to overall drive up everything. And I think Reggie Fils-Aimé knows that. Nintendo of America in particular at that time just didn't care when it comes down to some of the core games and felt it wasn't necessary because they were making money hand over fist with more of the casual games and the Wii Play and the Wii Fit and the Wii this and the Wii that. And they didn't feel like they needed to do some of that other stuff. Whereas in the generation of the Wii U and I would say the Nintendo Switch, they have to appeal to more of those core gamers. That's why I think that this is a bit silly. I think that he's trying to hide that they didn't necessarily care about a lot of the core gamers and some of these games. Because if you're looking overall, this type of localization effort, it's a 480p game. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be something to where, yes, it's going to cost money to do all the voice lines. It's going to cost money to do all that. But the game is already done. Xenoblade was already done in Japan. Yes, you got to localize it, but it was already done. And if you have to look at it this way, like Nintendo made so much money off of all of the Wii whatever stuff, like well more than what they developed it for. Like if you look at like Wii Play, you look at that, like the Wii Remote, little weird tech demo games, they sold so many copies of that. That would easily cover the localization in order to broaden the scope and the horizon of the system. It's not like you're pouring that money into making bigger and better versions of Wii Play or even like Wii Sports Resort. Look at all of these games. Look at Wii Fit. Look at all this stuff that did so much for them. It would easily cover what these other games are doing. Miyamoto even said this the other day, talking about they're worried about the creative side of it. And hey, look, every game's not going to be some type of big blockbuster, but as long as we can sell like the big Zelda or Mario that does really well, we'll be in a good spot. Well, what does that mean? Well, look, other games don't have to sell as well if we can sell multiple millions of this next Zelda, Mario, Smash Brothers, or whatever the case is. It's the same thing, if not even more, in the Wii era where it's 480p and the games were making money hand over fist because the development cost was not HD. So when Reggie sits there and says, oh, well, for our business and 100,000 signatures doesn't mean 100,000 sales, I'm thinking to myself, dude, you guys sold like 100 million units worth of mini game collections that absolutely usually don't have massive budgets or anything like that, that well made their development costs and then some. So to me, it's a bit of a thing in terms of like salesmanship that he's trying to do here, but it's not 100% accurate overall because they were making so much money off of other things, localizing 3 games, 480p games on the Wii, not even HD. I get it if it was big, like Final Fantasy 13 style games or something like that at that time in 2010, 2011, 2012, but we're talking about 480p games here. So no, I don't buy this. I think that Operation Rainfall had a huge effect. Personally, for me, I just think that this is my opinion. I think that Operation Rainfall had an effect on getting Nintendo of Europe in order to localize the game. And I think that that then had a trickle effect over on the US as well, because it's like, okay, Europe's going to get it. Nintendo sometimes didn't even localize a lot of games, even that was localized in Europe. I mean, there was one game in particular, Disaster Day of Crisis. That game was localized in Europe, and Nintendo of America just said, nah, we're good. Monolith Soft in particular was treated brutally when it comes to Nintendo of America. They didn't localize Soma Bringer either, which is a Nintendo DS dungeon crawler RPG type of game. So Nintendo of America just had something against Monolith Soft titles in that era, in the Wii and DS era, where they just didn't want to pick up their games no matter what. I mean, they had to do this like pulling, kicking, and screaming. And if you look at Xenoblade, clearly that was going to be a game that sold over 100,000 units. Clearly, it was going to be a game that did really well. There was an appetite for people to play a big RPG experience. That's why you got Monolith Soft in the first place. That's why Nintendo of Japan got them to make that style of game, because of what they did on the GameCube with Baten Kaitos and what they did with Xenosaga and what they did before when it comes to the old school Final Fantasies and Xenogears. This is the reason why you got them, use them. But to me, this is not necessarily a failure of Nintendo of America. This is a failure of Nintendo of Japan or Nintendo's HQ for not forcing them to release it. To me, it'd be insane to sit there and say, nah, that region, don't do it. I don't think you should allow them to make that decision on their own. It should be, yeah, Xenoblade, it's going to be a brand that we're going with going forward. You guys got to localize it. We're going to get this done. So I think that's kind of how it works a little bit more now at this point, considering Nintendo localizes almost everything. There's like one game, the Buddy Bond Mission or whatever, but this is just how Nintendo was back then. Nintendo was like this in the Wii and DS era. Even if you look at other games, Fatal Frame, they didn't localize that game on the Wii. They didn't localize Captain Rainbow. They didn't localize a number of titles on the Wii, and it was very, very annoying for them not to do it. It sucked back then, and I remember seeing the games online. I'm like, why isn't this localized? What's going on here? Even like Captain Rainbow looked silly, but it looked fun, you know, at the same time. So this is just something that Nintendo's done before in the past. I do think that Operation Rainfall had an effect. I think that Reggie's essentially just trying to make it seem as if he can't get strong-armed by fans here. But you know what? Some people feel that that's different. Some people feel that no, Nintendo, you know, it's something that they just didn't want to do, and they felt that it wouldn't sell or whatever the case is, and they finally bent the knee. I don't know, 2 years later, after the original Japanese release, we finally got it. But, you know, thankfully that happened, because Xenoblade is now once again a core staple when it comes down to Nintendo. We've got Pirate and Mithra in Super Smash Bros. Shulk is in Smash Bros. We got Amiibo. We've got all different types of definitive editions and remasters and cool games and DLCs and main games, and it's been great for Xenoblade fans. It's one of the best series out there, one of my favorite RPG series, easily a top 3 for me. So I'm very happy with how things turned out. You can look back and you can point fingers and you can say this or that, but at the end of the day, we still ended up getting the games. Xenoblade is still a staple now at this point, and people around the world can now enjoy Xenoblade. I think because of the Operation Rainfall, those original people, myself included, people online rallying that type of support, and also proving it, putting your money where your mouth is, because a lot of us actually went out there and purchased Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Here in the US, it was a GameStop exclusive, and they ran out of copies very quickly. So it was really, really hard to get those copies. At some point, it was kind of rare, but then they ended up printing more, and it's good. I have the original Wii game, and I'm looking forward to more and more people actually getting into Xenoblade. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming out next year. I think that's going to be some people's first Xenoblade game as well on the Nintendo Switch. So it's all good now at this point, but I do think that there's a little bit of showmanship here, hiding or concealing what's actually going on. But that's just my opinion, not calling Reggie an ultimate liar or anything like that. I just feel that there's a little bit more than what was let on here back in 2013, so 11 plus years ago at this point. So what do you guys think overall? when it comes down to Operation Rainfall, its effect on Nintendo, and the Xenoblade controversy here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.